Hello, Midnight Coders, and welcome to another episode of Spring into Java. So, in the last episode, we got our Spring Boot project running and set up the foundation for MediaStack. If you missed that episode, you can click the link in the description and check it out. No, seriously, check it out. I'll wait. So, if you've ever opened a Spring Boot project and thought, where do all these packages come from? And why is everything so scattered? This video will show you how to structure your code in a way that's scaled. So by the end of this video, you'll have a clear domain model for MediaStack, a package structure that separates concerns, and a foundation ready for persistence, services, and API integration. So make sure you've got that full cup of coffee. Let's dive on in. This right here is our blueprint for everything that comes next. We start with our domain model way up top, which is our entities, our core business logic, our core business objects. We're going to have our service layer, which is our business logic. We're going to have a repository, which is going to be where we are essentially a database layer. Our controller, which is going to be our endpoints. That's essentially our presentation layer where people are going to be interacting with our program. And then we're going to have an integration layer, which is actually going to consist of clients and that we're going to be using to make external API calls to reach out to our book service or the open book library. We are also going to be making a config package, which is going to hold all of our book project configuration, such as the REST clients and other configurations. Now let's focus on the core of MediaStack, tracking personal media. And we're going to start with books. So the key entity that we're going to be making here is going to be a MediaItem. This is going to be an abstract class here. So this is, we're going to have, I'm just going to add some annotations here just to get started. We're going to have getter, setter. We're going to have a toString. We are going to have, this is key, mapped superclass. All right, now this is going to become an abstract class. And in it, we have to fill out some basic information that basically every media type is going to consist of. So we're going to have an @ID because these are going to be an entity, of a type of entity, There we go. And with every ID comes a generated value. So thank you, autocorrect or IntelliSense or whatever that was. And this is going to this is just going to be a private long ID. Now, the other pieces that we need to do, thank you, is a title and then a private media type that we're just going to call media type. So now we need to create our mean, we would need to create our media type enum. Create that right quick. So now that will satisfy this one. Now, let's talk about that magical little mapped superclass. This allows inheritance without creating extra tables. It's actually pretty cool. So this will allow us to create this here superclass that we can then extend into our book or our movie or our game as our project grows. So we're going to pop back into the types, and these are going to consist that of a book, a movie, or a game. And that's it for now. That's all that needs, and that's all this needs. So next, let's create our book class. So if we go into our domain, create a new class, this one is just going to be of type book. And again, I'm going to throw in a couple of things here. It's going to be getter, setter, toString, and this one is also going to take in entity. This one is going to be an entity type book, which is going to be mapped into our, there we go. And now this is going to extend our media item so that our entity class is all happy. Now this is going to consist of a couple of fields. This is going to be a private string. Did I spell it right? And this is going to be the ISBN number. Next, we're going to have an author. Yep. And we are also going to keep track of a private string publication year, I guess. I guess we'll call that an integer because it's going to be actually, pages is one that I would like to keep track of. So let's keep track of that. Total number of pages. And then I also want to keep track of the publication year. So let's go with a private. This is going to be another integer. And this one is going to be published or publication year. Look at that. Perfect. All right. So that's going to be what our book is going to look like. And for those of you who are curious, the magic of JPA is going to be mapping this next. So from here, next we would want to create is a repository layer. So we pop into the repository and we create a new class. This is going to be an interface. This is going to be the book repository. Book repository, if I spelt that right, make sure. All right, so now this guy is going to be extremely simple. It is going to extend the JPA repository, and it needs a key value. The key being the object, in our case, a book, and the value being that of the identifier, so the ID. So back when we made our media type, we had stated that the ID was of type long. So when we come in here, we need to tell this type long. And that's all we need. No SQL required. This is just ready to persist. Now, that may seem a little weird because there's no SQL written, there's no this, there's no queries, there's no database connection. That might seem a little weird that this is able to persist. However, even though we just write an interface like this, Spring Data JPA automatically creates a working class at runtime. It does this by generating a proxy object behind the scenes that implements all of the methods, such as find all, save, and it delegates those to the JPA entity manager. That's why we can call repository methods without ever writing them here. And if we jump into the repository, you'll see that it comes with a few different pre-cooked methods in here, but it also extends other interfaces and libraries which also implement their own methods. So now, what does that magic look like? I have a little representation over here that you can see. This is not exactly what Spring generates, but this is just roughly what they would generate. So they would take our book repository class or interface, and they will create a book repository implementation, which consists of an entity manager that will have the persistence context, and it will override some of the existing methods in it, and it'll be able to return the query and all of its magic. So next, let's go and take a look at and create our service class. So the next thing that we're going to do is come into service and create a new class. This one is just going to be called, iBook service, and it's going to be an interface. This is going to be a sealed interface, which is going to eventually take in permit our a book service. However, let's get a couple of things out of the way here. So we want the CRUD operations. So we want to create. So this is going to return a book, and it's going to create a book. However, this is going to come from a book request that we will be creating in a little bit. So for now, we'll just call this object, and we'll call this book data. So next, we need a way to read. So next, we're going to want to get a book by its ID out of our personal database, or we may want to grab one based off its author. Well, we can get it by the ISBN because that's there. But also, I'd like to be able to get the book by its author. However, this is actually going to return a list of books. And I want to get all books by author. And I just want to take in an author's name. Great. Now, next, we are going to want to update UDate. We're going to want to update. So here's where I am just going to, again, we are going to take in an ID of the book that we're looking to update, which is actually going to be an IS. We're going to take in an ISBN number for the book that we're looking to update, because it'll be a little easier to track. From there, we're also going to take in another object of an updated book, which again we will create soon. Finally, we want to delete, and this is going to be the last of our CRUD methods. So now we need to create the book service implementation. So let's go ahead and create our concrete class. This is going to be a final class because it's going to implement iBook service. We are now going to implement those methods. And what we just did there was we created a contract. So this here is us creating a contract for what we want our service to do, which is at bare minimum the CRUD operations. So next, we will go ahead and finish wrapping up this service implementation. We need to annotate this with service so Spring can find it and initialize it. And I'm also going to annotate this with a required args constructor so that I can bring in the book repository that we've created earlier. And now, when we want to find a book by an ID, we can simply, we can simply just call our book repository find by or throw, and I'm just going to simply throw that sounds good to me, an illegal arguments exception saying that the book was not found. If we're going to find it by IS, we need to now come in here and we're going to create I'm sorry, I needed to annotate this one with repository so that Spring Data knows that it is a repository, so that I can now come into here and generate, maybe not. And this is because this is the superclass. Okay, well, whatever. So now I would like to be able, now if we want to get the book by the ISBN number, we can come into our repository and create our own optional method. So we're going to have an optional of a, look at that, an optional of a book, and we're going to find by ISBN. And because don't care if somebody, there we go. I want to ignore the case sensitivity for this, because I don't care if somebody puts the improper casing if there is a letter. If there is a letter, yes. So next, we'll go back into our implementation, and now we can simply call book repository dot find by ignore case or else throw. And again, now we have a way to get one from our own repository via the book ID or the ISBN. If we are looking for all of the books by one author, we can come back into our repository, and we can create another a list, because we would want a list of books to be found by the author. There we go. So now we come back into our here, and we can now say repository.find by author, ignoring the case. And for deleting, we can come down and simply say the book repository.delete by ID, and we delete that. So that is handled. The only things that are not handled now are creating the book and updating the book. So this has been our domain mapping. So at this point, we've designed the domain model for MediaStack. We've created entities, enums, and repository interfaces, as well as we've scaffolded together a service layer ready for future logic. We've also set up a package structure that is designed to scale. This is what makes Spring Boot applications maintainable and easy to extend. So in our next video, we will start connecting MediaStack to the outside world. We are going to call an external API to fetch book data based on the ISBN. We are going to dive into the Spring REST client to show you just how easy it becomes. And we'll keep our service layer very clean, focused, and testable. So, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've learned something, and if you did, make sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to learn more, remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss a future video. And if you happen to know a friend that may find this series useful, remember to share it, as it'll help us reach other developers. And as always, keep your curiosity open, your skills sharp, and that coffee cup full. I'll catch you in the next one.